We often hear that humanity was set back 1,000 years when the Library of Alexandria burned. It's a powerful image, a single catastrophic event that plunged the world into a dark age. But the truth is far more complex, and in many ways more tragic. The story of the ancient world's greatest knowledge center isn't one of a single fire, but of a slow, creeping decline. A story of political ambition, changing ideologies, and a world that simply forgot the value of what it had. So, who really destroyed the Library of Alexandria? What did humanity truly lose? Let's take a deep dive into the rise and fall of this legendary institution. To understand its end, we must first appreciate its glorious beginning. The library wasn't just a building, it was a revolutionary idea, a beacon of intellectual ambition, unlike anything the world had ever seen. It all started with Alexander the Great's vision for a new capital that would bridge the worlds of Greece and Egypt. After his death, his general Ptolemy, the first Sotar, took control of Egypt and established a new dynasty. Ptolemy and his successors wanted to make Alexandria the intellectual and cultural capital of the entire Hellenistic world. They weren't just content with military power, they sought the power of knowledge. The Ptolemies poured immense wealth into their project. The library, or more accurately, the Museum, was established as a research institution dedicated to the Muses, the 9 goddesses of the arts. Scholars from across the known world were invited to Alexandria, offered generous stipends, tax exemptions, and free board. Their only job was to think, to study, to write, and to push the boundaries of human understanding. This was a paradise for thinkers. Imagine a place where the greatest minds in mathematics, astronomy, literature, and medicine could collaborate. The library's goal was nothing less than to collect all the world's knowledge. Ships docking in Alexandria's harbor were required to surrender any books they carried. These scrolls were then meticulously copied by scribes, with the original kept for the library and the copy returned to the owner. The scale of the collection was staggering. While exact numbers are debated, estimates suggest the library held hundreds of thousands of scrolls. This wasn't just a warehouse of texts, it was a vibrant center of innovation. It was here that Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the Earth with remarkable accuracy, using just shadows, a well, and some clever geometry. It was here that Euclid wrote Elements, the foundational textbook for geometry that would be used for over 2 millennia. Hero of Alexandria created early steam engines and automated devices that seemed like magic to his contemporaries. The medical school in Alexandria practiced human dissection, a taboo in most other places, which led to groundbreaking discoveries about the human nervous, digestive, and circulatory systems. This was the golden age of the Library of Alexandria, a time when knowledge was pursued for its own sake, when the intellectual heritage of Greece, Egypt, and the Near East converged into a brilliant flame of discovery. But flames, as we know, are fragile. The very forces that built the library, political power and patronage, would also plant the seeds of its destruction. The decline wasn't an event, it was a process. The first major blow often cited is the fire started during Julius Caesar's visit in 48 BCE. While embroiled in a civil war against his rival Pompey's brother, Caesar's forces set fire to ships in the harbor. Ancient writers like Plutarch and Seneca describe the flames spreading and destroying a significant number of scrolls. However, many modern historians believe this fire likely destroyed a warehouse of scrolls near the docks, intended for export or storage, not the main library itself. The library certainly suffered damage, but it survived. Scholars continued to work there, and the collection was even replenished. Mark Antony is said to have gifted Cleopatra 200,000 scrolls from the Library of Pergamum to help replace the losses. So, Caesar's fire was a wound, but not a fatal one. The institution carried on, a testament to its resilience. The real decay came from within. The stability of the Ptolemaic dynasty began to crumble. Later Ptolemies were less interested in scholarly pursuits and more consumed by power struggles and political intrigue. In 145 BCE, Ptolemy VIII, a particularly brutal ruler, purged Alexandria of its intellectuals, including many of the scholars associated with the library. He expelled them, creating a brain drain that the institution never fully recovered from. This marked a significant turning point. The library's funding was cut, and its position as the undisputed center of learning began to erode. The world was changing. The Roman Empire rose, and its focus shifted from Alexandria to Rome. While Rome respected Greek learning, its priorities were different. They were masters of engineering, law, and administration, but the kind of abstract, theoretical inquiry that flourished in Alexandria was less of a priority. The library became a shadow of its former self, a prestigious but diminished institution. It was no longer the engine of discovery it had once been. This slow, painful decline continued for centuries. Then came the next major blow. In the 3rd century CE, the Roman Emperor Aurelian, while reconquering the city from the Palmyrene Empire, destroyed the district where the main library was located. This conflict likely obliterated what was left of the original Great Library, the Museum. Even then, the idea of the library persisted. A daughter library housed in the temple complex known as the Serapeum had grown in importance. It became the new heart of Alexandria's intellectual life, carrying the torch of its parent institution. But it too would face the shifting tides of history. The final act in this long tragedy was driven not by military conquest, but by religious conflict. By the late 4th century CE, the Roman Empire had become officially Christian. The old pagan traditions and temples were seen as a threat to the new order. In 391 CE, the zealous patriarch of Alexandria, Theophilus, was granted permission by the emperor to destroy the pagan temples in the city. The magnificent Serapeum, which housed the daughter library, was a prime target. A Christian mob, incited by Theophilus, descended upon the temple. They tore it down, defaced its statues, and, according to many accounts, destroyed the scrolls it contained. This was not an act of accidental warfare. It was a deliberate obliteration of a symbol of the old pagan world and its heretical knowledge. This was the final, definitive blow. So, who destroyed the Library of Alexandria? The answer is not one person or one event. It was a shared responsibility, a death by 1,000 cuts. It was Caesar's ambition, the political cruelty of Ptolemy VIII, the military campaigns of Aurelian, and the religious fanaticism of Theophilus and his followers. Most of all, it was the slow, creeping apathy of a world that changed around it and forgot to value what it was losing. This brings us to the final, haunting question. What was actually lost? Was humanity truly set back 1,000 years? This is likely an exaggeration. Knowledge is not so easily contained or destroyed. Many of the most important works from the library had already been copied and disseminated throughout the ancient world. The ideas of Euclid, Archimedes, and Eratosthenes had already taken root elsewhere. The real loss was not a specific set of facts or inventions. The real loss was the unknown. We lost the countless unique works that existed only in Alexandria. We lost the plays of Sophocles and Euripides that are now just titles in an ancient catalog. We lost histories, philosophical treatises, and scientific observations that we will never even know existed. We lost the full context of the ancient world's intellectual conversation. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of all was the loss of the library itself as an idea. The concept of a universal institution, publicly funded and dedicated to collecting all of human knowledge for the sake of progress, was extinguished. It would be more than a millennium before anything remotely like it would appear again. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria was a powerful lesson in the fragility of knowledge and the danger of taking it for granted. It reminds us that libraries are more than just buildings. They are the guardians of our collective memory, and we must never stop fighting to protect them. Thank you for joining this deep dive into one of history's greatest mysteries. If you enjoy exploring the complex truths behind the stories we think we know, be sure to subscribe to Infinitonial for more.